Welcome to another episode of Inquiring Minds. I'm Steve Harper, and with me, as always, is Donna Carlin. Donna, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I am excited for today's conversations. What are we talking about?
Do you have a why that's bigger than you?
Do I have a why that's bigger than me?
How's that for throwing it out
Oh,
there? Yeah.
oh,
Do you have a
man.
why that's bigger than you?
I would
That's the
like to.
question we're posing.
I think that's a great question. I would like to think I have several whys that are bigger than me, but I am curious as to what prompted this question. So I'm throwing it back to you first.
Oh, thanks. Um, I look at people who are slammed with work and they never ask, why am I doing this? Or,
Ah,
in my world, you don't use the why question very often.
yeah.
It's you're doing this for the sake of what and to see how to answer. But when it comes to personal question or a question to ask ourselves, um, do I have a why that's bigger than me, that's beyond what my specific goals are, my schedule is, everything else, like what am I doing here? And it sort of occurred to me, and we sort of touched upon this a little bit in the past, that as I'm into, literally this October will be 40 years in this field, what am I going to be doing to have a broader impact that's broader than just me and each individual client? So, what is the why? Why am I doing what I'm doing? It's
Hmm.
obviously to make a difference in people's lives and careers and their competency and to achieve their dreams, all the stuff that you could list,
Yep.
that a coach does. How does it go beyond that? Like, what is my why? Well, what if I could impact targeted people that we're doing extraordinary things for the world, for the globe, the planet, the climate, everything else. There's so many crises going on here. If I make people's lives a little bit better so they could do better work and have broader impact, maybe it will impact legislation, climate issues, all of that stuff. Um, you know, let me sort of narrow it down even to a mundane kind of example. Why do I separate the trash, to compostable and everything else? It's easier just to throw it all in one bucket, but the why is bigger than me. The why is, as one individual, I might make a difference. And if everyone had that attitude, and they recycled and they did everything to help the planet, then what would the impact be? And it's got to be something, a purpose, a why that is bigger than me and my day-to-day work.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And as I'm thinking about that, I mean the impact is you feel good by executing on your why, right? So that's a you get personally rewarded by doing the things that you know are likely to make a difference, at least in the moment. They make the difference by what you're doing through your actions, but also anybody else that you may that hears this episode now knows what you do and how you do it, may be inspired enough to do it themselves. And so that ripple effect of, your action could truly make that impact. It reminds me of a story that I was once told, about a guy that was going going down the beach for a jog, and he saw a guy that was picking up starfish and putting them back in the water. And he ran by and thought, that there's just lots of starfish that seem to be stranded from the tide. And the guy's, doing one at a time, and he runs by and doesn't think much about it. He comes back on his return run. He has to stop and ask that guy. And he's like, there's hundreds of them. You're not going to be able to make a difference. And as the man threw the other, starfish into the water, he said, well, I may not be able to make a difference for all of them, but I made a difference for that one, right? That's a motivation behind the why, when it's a bigger outcome than just what you personally feel or get rewarded, but the impact that you have for around, the planet or the people around you, or just the ability for you to make that influence in the moment. And I think of those things because we all have those opportunities every single day to do certain things to make a difference. But if we are so caught up in our craziness and we're so focused on our own lives that we don't actually look beyond ourselves, we often struggle to find that why. And for my coaching clients, I often ask with that, start with that question. Why are you putting in those 80 hours or 100 hours a week? Why are you, you know, so committed to building this business and doing things the way you're doing it? And oftentimes the default answer is, well, I'm doing it for my family. And, it's, I'm trying to leave a legacy for my kids, or I'm trying to provide a good, home environment, a better roof over their head, or better cars, or the materials trappings that often, pervade a lot of our culture. But there's often that motivation. But, are you really doing it for the kids if you're not there for the kids when you can't make the soccer game, or you can't make the school plays, or you can't be an active participating parent in the family unit because you're working all the time? And you really have to understand and appreciate the specificity of the why, and really get to that piece, I think, individually, so that you have a true understanding and drive and purpose behind it. You could still run your business and you can still grow it, but now maybe you need to look at how to hire so that you don't have to burn all those hours all the time. You have to delegate some responsibilities. You have to, be focused on not that next sale, but building the team so that you can get more than just the next sale, but you get mini sales. And now you have the flexibility to spend time with your kids. You have the freedom that entrepreneurship or business ownership should be giving you. But if you don't look at it through the right or correct lens, then potentially you may miss the entire point. Next thing you know, you've been doing it for 15 years and you missed your entire kid's childhood.
We're into these fish stories. There's a story about a fisherman that's fishing, and his catch is really quite good. And a tourist comes over and says, why don't you hire more fishermen? More fish you have, the more money you can make, and the bigger your business could be. And he said, you could retire earlier. Then what could you do, if you retired earlier? So the fisherman looked at him and said, fish. And I'm doing that right now.
Yeah,
So there
yeah,
you go. That goes back to, perfection being a dream stealer in our
yep,
previous episode. It speaks to that. I had a client that was a very, very high level government leader and a diplomat. And he was never home for his kids, just like you were talking about the
yeah,
entrepreneur that works 80 hours a week. He was on mission, he was away from his family like constantly, and was never there for the milestone events in his family. And when he retired, he had a very cursory kind of relationship with his kids, and he decided to write a book of the why he did it,
yep,
why it was so important to him to do the work that he did, because he wanted to make a difference so life would be better for his kids and
yeah,
safer for his kids globally. And that was something that he needed to do for them to understand. And they sort of understood, but the point was, did they have that heartfelt connection? Because they missed all the growing up years and all the special milestones, and regret was always a part of that relationship. So you need to weigh things. And I remember a colleague of mine at a board meeting where the two of us were absolutely misbehaving, I have to say. We had to be separated, but
you
at one
no, I
point,
can't, I
yeah,
can't see
oh
that
yeah,
ever.
she looked at me and she said, somebody said, we have to sacrifice, some of our free time in order to do this board work. And she opened up and said, sacrifice is making something sacred. So when you do make that sacrifice, you make sure that the reason behind it, or the why, is so sacred to you that there's no other option in your mind.
Oh, that's great.
Isn't that a great
Yeah,
definition of
it is.
sacrifice?
Yeah, absolutely. And that really drives it home, right? I mean, in a much different perspective than even I've thought about. So that's really impressive. Well,
I
let me
think
ask
about
you.
that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say. So when you find, like you work with a lot of different clients with a lot of different types of responsibilities. How do you work with your coaching clients to determine if they have the right why? And I think one of the things that a coach can be really instrumental in doing is help shift those priorities and real help them uncover maybe some of those key blind spots, like you're putting in those 80 to 100 hours, but you're missing all of the great stuff over here. And how do you figure out how to get the best of both worlds, right? And a lot of times it's helping sort of lead that client to a different appreciation of what why really should mean potentially, or what it could, what else it could mean, other than just what they've arrived at and sort of defaulted to by way of behavior.
Oh, there's many reasons why people work 80 hours a week, and sometimes it's avoidance,
Yeah,
or they have nothing else to fill their life in, and it's the
yeah,
only thing that gives them a feeling of purpose and contribution. So, like, I remember my son came to me and asked me a question about somebody who was overworking, and he was getting emails, like some one of his team getting emails at crazy hours over the weekends, and he didn't want her to have the expectation that the rest of the team would be doing the same.
yeah,
And I said to him, there's a why behind this. Does she have a life? Does she have anything else in her life?
yeah,
If this is all she's got and you take it away by telling her, don't do this, you could be doing more harm than good. So understand why has many different forms. And if it's what gives her fulfillment and she has nothing else, it's really important to understand and to learn about that. The second part of that is, does that individual want a fuller life, relationship, or whatever? There might be a reason why they're not going for a more intimate relationship or a partner in life. There are reasons behind everything.
yeah,
And if you get to the root cause of that, then you can help them feel good about whatever their choices are. It's not for me to steer them in a direction to say, what do you need to do to work 40 hours a week or 4-hour work weeks or whatever,
yeah,
are the buzz terms these days. It's for me to find out what gives you a sense of joy and fulfillment without, what's the word for that? Imposing that on anybody else,
yeah,
because there's an unintended consequence sometimes of that. Um, Find out what their why is and help them be at one with it and comfortable with it. Once they're comfortable with it, they could look at other options if they so choose. Because as a coach, as you know, it's not for us to force an outcome. It's for us to really seek to understand, illuminate the truth of the moment, and help them see through different lenses what's possible.
yeah.
The
No,
choices that they make are their choices and theirs alone to make. It's never my intention or my goal, for a lack of a better word, to make them feel bad about their current state of life. It's for them to understand it and make choices accordingly.
yeah, yeah. No, that's good. I was thinking about your email example, and I remember an executive that I had coached from a major computer manufacturer that was she her motivation for sending emails at all hours of the day and night was that she got a sense of reward from it, and it was a problem, and her team had tried to communicate that it was a problem, and they felt like there was this sort of hidden implication, that they were required to respond when these these emails came out at all hours, and it was causing a lot of conflict. And she was pretty oblivious to it. And so we got together and we started having a conversation. And I said, the team had raised this, that you don't seem to sleep. you're constantly communicating at all hours. And she said, yes. She said it's a bad habit. And I said, well, what do you think, what started that habit? And what was pretty interesting was that she had been rewarded in her first job out of college for always being on top of everything. And no matter what was happening in her personal life or what time of day it might be, or if it was on the weekends, she got rewarded from her first boss for sending these status updates, reports, etc., at all hours. And when it was time, she would get it done, get it knocked out. And so she had absorbed that reward system, in that when she had something important to say, or when something needed to be done or accomplished, she would do it, push it out, not expecting or thinking necessarily what the expectation might be for the people who receive it. And so when we dove into that, I realized that what she was really doing was she was equating her seat at the table with always being sort of that hard charger driver and it within the organization and the team. And she felt like she had to do that and almost outdo herself every quarter or every year over and above what she was doing, because she really hadn't, taken the time to recognize that she was already there. She was there,
Wow.
and she unfortunately through her behavior was actually impacting everybody else's satisfaction with their job and creating a challenge within their culture within that team. And it was interesting to get to the reason for the why she did it, when she did it, and how she did it, and then have that light bulb moment pop open with her, like when she realized, oh my gosh, I am really no expectation, never even gave it a thought that people were being impacted or thinking, one way or the other, that they had to be on the clock, so to speak, when they were off the clock. But I can sense that, that's exactly what through my actions is happening. And it was really interesting for her to sort of arrive at that level that she didn't need to continue to impress and, and sort of, raise her flag that she belonged there, because she was already there. And I think that there are, you probably could have countless examples of people that finally arrive at that conclusion, like, oh my gosh, I've been doing it this way forever. And the motivation behind the why is no longer valid, no longer necessary.
And it's no longer the why is bigger than her.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, what is the why that's bigger than me, if I'm focusing on the reward I'm getting, that's an internal why. And the the reason behind why you're doing something, or continuing to do something, it's not bigger than you. The actual impact that's bigger than you is negative.
Yeah.
So maybe I should have asked, what is the positive why that's bigger than you are?
Yeah.
Because that's inferred, and I think that's a very important question for us to ask ourselves on a regular basis as we live our lives, to make sure that there's a purpose beyond self gratification, self reward, all of that, because that's only going to sustain us so long. It's not going to help us grow, contribute, and do something that we're very grateful for, because it has had such a good impact on other people.
Yeah. Well, that is well said. I mean, I think we could go on for a long time on this topic. We may have to revisit it as a sequel at some juncture, but we like to keep these episodes somewhat short so that people can absorb this topic, go back, think about them, maybe start their own conversations in their own teams or within their own friends or family circles. So, Donna, if people wanted to give some input or feedback on this episode, or wanted to share, their why, we'd love to hear those comments. How can they get in contact with us?
So join our Facebook group, Inquiring Minds with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper, and share it with your friends. And actually, I just had an idea. So that idea is, if you like any of these topics and they really resonate with you, use them as a dinner table topic with friends or with your family.
Yeah.
It's just so funny because we meet with friends once a week, to catch up, even if it's virtual. And with COVID, you start running out of ideas and things to share with people. And
Yeah.
this is a great conversation starter to ask one of these questions and ask, what is your take on this?
Yeah.
So just consider that. All our shows are posted up on that Facebook page, so you could review some of the old ones, and obviously our YouTube page and our podcasts, and get us at our website. So Steve is at ripplecentral.com. He's the king of ripplers. And I am donnacarlin.com with a K. And, check out our other social media posts. And if there's anything there that you want us to have a conversation about, let us know that too, because you could email us through there or through our social media platforms.
Absolutely. Well, that's excellent suggestions. In fact, I actually have a team meeting coming up for one of my companies, and I'm going to start with that question, that we posed today, is a great way to open, because you may just find a unique perspective from your folks, the people that you bring this up to. You might learn something along the way, which is part of why we bring these topics up and have these conversations. And I'm kind of excited to have it now. So thanks for that suggestion, Donna. This has been another great episode. We'll be back again very soon with another episode of Inquiring Minds. But until then, everyone take care. And Donna, I will see you soon.
Have a great one.